So is there 0% chance they sign Elly? You said no.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's a 0% chance. I do think that this drastically hurts our chances.
Yeah.
I think the worst thing that could have happened for the Reds in this whole ordeal is for Juan Soto to nearly double the original offer from the Nationals, because I assume that Scott Boras, the agent of both Elly and Juan Soto, will be reminding Elly of that increase in pay every single time the Reds bring him an offer for the next however many years. But we've seen this happen other places where players get signed to contracts for ridiculously low amounts of money. And the one that comes to mind right now for me is Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt signed an extension. He's one of the best young players in baseball. He, certainly in the conversation, Elly, him, Gunnar Henderson, best young shortstops in the whole sport. He's incredible. He signed a contract for less than $300 million to stay in Kansas City. Obviously, it's a little different with when he signed it. It was closer to when he came up. Elly's kind of developed a little bit more as a relative household name now in Major League Baseball. It's going to be harder to get him at a bargain deal, but getting guys earlier in their contract to eat up some arbitration years, some years of that first deal or whatever, that's the Reds' only chance.
Tatis, I think, was the same.
Right. There's a lot of these big contracts to these guys. The way you get it done and keep them in these small markets is by doing it early and eating up those cheap years and giving them a benefit to taking a $300 million contract over a $700 million contract. Now, obviously, your discussion about, it's probably a 6-7 year deal or a 15-year deal. We're talking about a much different type of length here, but I don't think it's a 0% chance the Reds re-sign Elly. I think it's low. I think it's unlikely, but I don't think it's zero.
It's why signing that Hunter Green contract that early was such an incredible move by the front office. They're paying him $9 million. He's a $25 million pitcher.
I was going to say, what did we just pay Nick Martinez?
And $21 million.
And we're justifying it to be a spot starter. We're saying if he does what he did last year, that's a good deal. Hunter Green's getting less than half of that to be our ace and a Cy Young caliber pitcher.
Unbelievable. Elly De La Cruz, I think as of right now, if I were the Dodgers or if I was somebody else, I think he's a 10-year, $350 million player. That's at least as of this very second. I could see somebody. I don't think he's a $400 million player yet. I think he's a $350 million player, and I think that's about where the Reds' ceiling is. I think the Reds need, if they have any interest in getting that done at any point, you need to do it now. You need to do it as soon as possible, because with each passing season, and with each season he steals 90 bases, and with each season that he is making star-studded plays at shortstop, making all-star games, that number just keeps going. And it's going to keep going until it gets to a Juan Soto type of deal. Because Kinner isn't wrong in the fact that Elly does do more things right than Juan Soto. Juan Soto just does one thing better than anybody else in Major League Baseball. Elly can steal bases, he plays elite defense, and he can hit. He's a five-tool player. You pay that guy $500 million. You pay him $700 million if he's good enough, which we all know he will be at some point in his career. If I'm the Reds, I would try to get a 10-year, $350 million deal done as soon as possible. I don't know if that's even in the cards. I don't even know if Boras would pick up the phone for that deal. But that's at least what I think he's worth now, and I also think that is the cap. I don't think the Reds would do a Nationals deal. I don't think they would pay $440 million. I don't think they got it in them.
I think they'd put a crazy amount of years on it.
They might do that. If they did 440, it would be at least 15 years.
Yeah, 440, 17 years. Something crazy
It would be an incredible number. Like 18 years with an opt-in.
Right. No, like they would control themselves and not Elly. Like it would be, how can we get out of this at some point if they have to? It's going to be interesting to see the gymnastics they pull to try to pull this off, because do I think the Reds are going to sign Elly? If you made me bet on it right now, I'd probably take the no long term. Do I think they're not going to try? I would also comfortably take the no. They're not just going to sit idly by and watch one of the most electric players in the history of this franchise walk out the door, especially after the next 5 years of him playing in Cincinnati. That's the other thing a lot of people keep forgetting, is he's here for 5 years. He's a free agent in 2029.
Yeah.
This is just the start of his Reds career, which is part of why we are talking about you need to get it done now, because we've already seen how much his price has risen from his rookie year to this year. Now what happens from 25 to 26? What happens from 25 to 29?
What happens if he gets an MVP over the next couple of years, which is possible?
And also, what was the conversation we had? Juan Soto got that money because he's a 26-year-old free agent.
Yep.
How old's Elly in 2029? He's 22 right now. That's 5 years. He's 27 years old.
It's a lot of math.
If he's been healthy, and he gets the power up and he drops the errors down, could he be $1 billion?
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me, but the way the markets are going in Major League Baseball now, it certainly it has a chance. There will be no salary cap.
The Dodgers will give him a 20-year, $1 billion deal, and he'll make $1.8 million a year for the first 10 years of that deal.
Yeah.
That'll hurt.
Then they'll pay him $900 million for the next decade.
I'm interested to see how it all unfolds, but if you have any hope in the Reds re-signing this guy, it has to be right now. You have to get Elly De La Cruz right now before that number gets to a point where there's a 0.0% chance. Because there's not, to Jacob's
I think
point.
the deadline's about the All-Star break this year.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Like that immediate.
Oh, yeah. If Ellie's going to be a Red long-term, like I'm talking next decade, it's at the very latest, I'd say opening day next year. Not this year, but next year.
Yep.
I think once he gets these seasons under, he was an All-Star last year.
Yeah.
He's going to be an All-Star starter this year, I would assume. I don't imagine Ellie's going anywhere but up. And if you go up from last year, I mean, you're winning a couple MVPs in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of optimism for the Reds re-signing him long-term if they don't do it quickly.
And you said 5 more years of Elly. Might be less than that, because if they come to the conclusion that they can't keep him, the best way to maximize Elly is to move on from him.
Have to. It'd be the hardest thing Reds fans have ever been put through.
And you don't wait until after 5 years. You wait probably. So we might get.
You get 3 years.
At least 3.
If you cannot re-sign Elly De La Cruz, you have to trade him with a full year left. You have to, because if you trade him in that last year, you are getting kneecapped on the value you can get because he's labeled a rental, and that's immediately changes what you get in value.
Oh, that's depressing.
The Padres traded their entire franchise for Juan Soto for a year and a half. Mackenzie Gore was the favorite to win Rookie of the Year that year when they traded him.
Yeah.
Like, C.J. Abrams, when he's not at the casino, is a damn good shortstop in Washington. James Wood was the number 3 prospect when he got called up in all of baseball? Like, trading players like Juan Soto, if you're the Nationals, like, God forbid, an Elly De La Cruz, if you're in Cincinnati, that can save the franchise as opposed to dribbling up the clock and letting him walk to have an extra year or two of fun watching a star player and having him leave in free agency.
Who's a player that just walked? Is Bryce that? Did Bryce just walk?
Yeah, Bryce just walked.
Bryce just walked.
Like just
From
walked?
Nationals.
Yeah.
And they happened to win a World Series the very next year because he went to the Phillies.
Because you had a guy like Juan Soto in your farm system. Like, this is what I mean. Like, you have to replenish this stuff if you're going to lose great players. And I know that's not a conversation anyone wants to have, and we really shouldn't be having it right now. I don't know why I even brought it up, but if you're going to not extend Elly, you got to get stuff back for him. This is the same exact conversation as T. Higgins for me. If you have a great player, you can't let him walk out the building for free. You have to get something in return if you can't keep him.
And if you think the All-Star break is that true deadline of having that conversation, then it actually is more relevant now than we think. And especially with that Soto deal.
People see 2029 and they think it's just like, we have all the time in the world. We'll see if he irons out the strikeouts and the errors before we give him this $400 million deal. Make sure he's more of a polished player before we commit the biggest contract in Reds history. The Reds don't have that luxury.
No.
Because once he becomes that polished player that you know is an MVP candidate year in and year out, if people still have doubts, then the other teams are in. Then the Dodgers are in, and the Yankees are in, and the Mets are in, and the Red Sox are in. Like, you can't battle with those teams. You found Elly. You got your lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Now you got to hold on to it.
Yeah, if you've come to the point where there's no longer questions that he's your future, it's too late. He is not your future because you can't pay him now. You have to. If you have questions, other teams have questions too, and that's when you sign him. You have to take the risk. That's the game you play when you buy a sports franchise. The Castellinis, I'm sure they knew that coming into 2000, whatever, 4, 6. I don't know the exact year. I should have known that before I started this. But either way, they knew the game when they got involved. You have to take risks, and other teams have been successful with it. The Reds were successful with it with Joey Votto. That is objectively the right contract. That was a great move for the Reds organization. They have to do it again with Elly De La Cruz. And fans here are going to be upset with the number that he's going to get. It's going to be insane. It's going to be a number that Reds fans have not seen ever in their lifetime.